Okay, let's talk about some different scenarios of how the stock market is affected by presidential elections. So, I'm going to talk about three different scenarios that I feel are comparable to the current election situation we are in right now for the 2020 election. So, the first scenario we're going to talk about is the Bush Gore election in 2000. If you remember, they had to have a recount in Florida because it was too close to call, and that there were the hanging chads on the ballots and all of that. And the election took place first, the 2nd or 3rd of November. And they didn't know the results, as we can see here, until December the 12th. So it took about 1 month and 1 week before we knew who won that election. And when that happened, if we go to Morningstar, I'm searching VFIAX, that's a Vanguard S&P 500 index fund. If we look at the last week of October to the last day of the year, December 31st, 2000, you can see the stock market was down about 7.8% after the election, and with that result being drug out. Now, if you look at the overall history, the market continued to decline. We were starting to get into the dot-com bubble burst in 2001, and then by 9/11 we had a big drop thanks to that. But it looks like the stock market was down 7.8% from the last week of October 2000 until the last day of December in 2000. We had a somewhat of a contested election during that time. Now, the next one we're going to look at would be the 1992 election. And the reason I want to look at the 1992 election is we had President George H.W. Bush, and he was a one-term president, so he had already served one term, but he lost that election to Bill Clinton, so he did not serve a second term because Bill Clinton beat George H.W. Bush when he was running for his second term. So the reason I want to look at this scenario would be if we have a one-term Trump presidency because Biden wins and beats Trump when Trump's trying to run for a second term. Now, with the 1992 election, this goes from the last week in October until the last day of December 1992, and with a one-term president losing, the S&P 500 was up 4.79% in that time frame. Now, the U.S. had just come out of a recession in the early 90s. I believe it lasted from 1990 to 1991. Let's see here. Yep, 8 months from 1990 to 1991. So it had just come out of a recession, so the market was on the incline anyway, but even with a change in power at the presidency, the market went up almost 5% after a one-term presidency. Now, the third scenario I'm going to look at is the 2008 election. After Bush got out of office, George W. Bush Jr., if we want to call him that, and Obama and McCain ran, and Obama beat McCain. Now, the reason I want to look at this election is because the U.S. was already going through the 2008-2009 financial crisis. So this shows from the last week of October until the last day of December of 2008, we get a new president, but it's during a very bad financial crisis, which I would equate somewhat to the coronavirus in a way where we've got, something crazy going on in the world that's affecting the markets. And you can see the market was up 7.12% from the last week of October until the last day of December after going through an election and having a new president. But one thing to keep in mind at this point, the market was already beat down from the 2008-2009 financial crisis, and it dropped about, it hit its low in March of 2009. So if we want to go to March '09, it hits its low right here. Oh, I just messed it up. Sorry about that, guys. But basically, it hits its low in March. Hang on. This would be a good time to like and subscribe and mash that like button, by the way. So the market hits its low in March of '09, and this goes back to '05. You can see this is May of '08. Here it hits a high in October of '07, and then from there it just keeps going down and down. This drops from August '08 until November '08. So in the election, the new president, with the election during this time, I don't think it had that much of an effect on the market. It was more the financial crisis as a whole. The market was beat down pretty good. It hits its low right here, and then it starts creeping back up. But all this information, again, I took off of Morningstar by searching Vanguard's S&P 500 Index Fund, VFIAX. And this is, none of these charts are made up. You can look at all of this. But this just shows some scenarios that you can kind of see how the market might be affected by the outcome of this 2020 election. But again, none of these years are exactly the same. We got a president that might not get a second term. We've got the coronavirus going on, with somewhat of an unhealthy economy, or an economy in a rebound phase right now. So it's hard to tell what it would do, but this gives you some things to think about. Thanks for stopping by.